Graduation day for more than 1,900 students at Harvard University. But this year, commencement for the class of 2025 is happening in the shadow of that unprecedented legal battle with President Trump. Shortly after today's ceremonies begin, Harvard's attorneys and the Department of Homeland Security are set to face off at a hearing over the Trump administration's attempt to strip the school of its ability to enroll students from overseas. Now, even though a judge has temporarily blocked that move, the head of Harvard's immigration services said in a court filing that some students are, quote, afraid to attend their own graduation ceremonies. NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton joins us now from Cambridge, Massachusetts with the latest. Antonia, first of all, just what is expected to happen at this hearing today?
Good morning, Joe. Well, in this Boston federal courtroom, we're going to hear from both sides in this case, and they are going to meet face to face for the very first time. We expect Harvard to lay out an argument that we already have a pretty good sense of because they've submitted filings and they've made their position in recent days quite clear. They're going to argue that this is all about political retribution coming from the Trump administration. They are very likely going to bring up remarks that the president has made on Truth Social and elsewhere, for example, referring to people here on the campus as bird brains, accusing people of all kinds of things, labeling the school as anti-American. Secretary Noem saying that Harvard has associations with the Chinese Communist Party, and argue that this is really about a sort of ideological and political conflict and not about what the Trump administration has argued for weeks here, which is that they have concerns about anti-Semitism on campus, that they have concerns about violence and protests that happened last year on campus. And both sides are going to go sort of toe-to-toe in front of each other. And then there's a possibility the judge could rule from the bench. But we could also be in a situation, Joe, where we're waiting for a couple days to see what kind of action the judge chooses to take. What Harvard is, of course, hoping here is that the restraining order stays in place, ultimately, Joe.
So, Antonia, outside of the courtroom, we've just seen this fight between Harvard and the president escalate day after day, even more so over the past couple of days. Talk about how the president might be shifting his strategy here.
Well, President Trump has in some ways, I think, struggled at times, Joe, to actually stay with what the administration's official strategy is. The official strategy is this is a school that has allowed anti-Semitism to fester. They have not introduced specific cases or names or incidents as they've made that argument. It's sort of been a broad picture of campus life that they've tried to paint. They've tried to say that the president and other leaders at the university haven't done enough work to protect Jewish students here. And that's sort of the argument, that there's a civil rights violation on the campus, and that's why they need to work with this administration to make changes. But he has strayed at many points in his comments, again, sort of making very direct and personal attacks at times on social media that will, according to the experts I've spoken to, potentially undermine him in court. Take a listen to some of President Trump's remarks.
Harvard has to understand the last thing I want to do is hurt them. They're hurting themselves. They're fighting. You know, Columbia has been really, they were very, very bad what they've done. They're very anti-Semitic and lots of other things. But they're working with us on finding a solution. And, you know, they're taking off that hot seat. But Harvard wants to fight. They want to show how smart they are. And they're getting their kicked.
And, you know, to be clear, Joe, you're hearing him there make this comparison to Columbia University, which agreed to most of the Trump administration's demands. They've faced immense criticism, even, frankly, shame from other universities, faculty members around the country since that happened. And so for Harvard, most of the people here who hear the president make those remarks, they actually see that as a badge of honor. They want to be seen as taking a very different strategy from that other school, Joe.
Yeah, and amid all this, as we mentioned, graduation day there, that's a milestone students work so hard to get to, especially if you went to Harvard. Talk about the feeling among students there getting set to graduate.
You know what's interesting, Joe? I was here last week, and I would say that last week the feeling was fear, anxiety. That's sort of what prevailed around campus. Today, though, there is immense excitement, not just because people are celebrating their graduation day, but because actually various factions with very different political and foreign policy views here have come together because they believe there is an existential threat against them here at the university. I had a chance to speak with a senior right before he processed into the yard behind me here to get ready for his graduation. Take a listen to some of our conversation.
We are all obviously celebrating our own achievements today for our 4 years, but I think that Trump's threat against Harvard are truly hanging over this, because without the international students, Harvard is not Harvard anymore. And, we might be the last international class in a while. When people come back next semester, there might not be any international students left. I have friends who are back home and are truly panicking right now.
Expect to hear cheers throughout the day here. People have been giving President Alan Garber here at Harvard standing ovations because they see him as sort of the last line of defense. And so today is about graduation, but it's also about celebrating what Harvard means and what they hope it continues to mean to this community and to the world, Joe.
All right, Antonia, thank you so much.
Graduation, that magical day where dreams take flight, unless you're at Harvard in 2025, where caps in the air were shadowed by subpoenas and the lingering scent of MAGA vengeance. Because just as students were preparing to collect their overpriced pieces of parchment, the Trump administration was busy trying to collect Harvard's international enrollment privileges. Yes, folks, it's not a campus protest unless Uncle Don shows up to shut it down. In a courtroom showdown straight out of a legal drama, except, real and way more ridiculous, Harvard's lawyers squared off against the Department of Homeland Security. The reason? Trump's bold attempt to strip Harvard of its ability to admit international students. Because nothing screams greatest nation on earth like banning the brightest minds from entering it. According to Trump, Harvard is a hive of anti-American bird brains with suspicious connections to the Chinese Communist Party. The usual subtlety we've come to expect from a man whose idea of diplomacy is yelling at clouds from a golf cart. But let's pause and ask, what's this really about? Officially, the Trump camp says this is all about antisemitism on campus. Never mind that they've provided no names, no incidents, no actual cases, just vibes, vague, ominous, politically convenient vibes. And when that doesn't hold up in court, Trump pivots to calling Harvard too smart for their own good, which, let's be honest, is probably his real problem with them. Trump even dragged Columbia University into this, bragging that they agreed to his demands and were taken off the hot seat. Translation, they caved. Harvard, on the other hand, Harvard wants to fight. Harvard wants to be smart. And that's a capital crime in Trump world.
And we start with breaking news on Harvard's graduation day. Just a few miles away from the commencement ceremony, a U.S. district judge ordered the Homeland Security and State Departments not to make any changes to the university's student visa program indefinitely. CNN is covering the story from all angles. Paula Reed is following the updates inside the hearing, and Danny Freeman is next to Harvard's campus where graduation is wrapping up. Paula, first walk us through what the judge said.
So Dana, for now, international students can still come to Harvard. Now, today, the judge was looking at this move by the Trump administration to revoke the university's student visa program. This impacts their ability to host international students, because if you come here to attend school from another country, you have to be enrolled in a school with a valid student visa program. The university has argued that this is a violation of their free speech and other constitutional rights. And today, this was a high-stakes hearing in this ongoing battle between the university and the administration, and it was almost derailed by a late-night filing last night by the Justice Department. This was a formal notice to the school that they intended to go forward with this, and it kicked off a 30-day period that would have given the university an opportunity to respond. And Dana, that's the kind of boring procedural stuff that can completely delay or derail a hearing like this. But today, the judge was not having it. She said she did not want to leave this issue open. And instead, she said she wants to, quote, maintain the status quo. So she is going to continue a temporary block on this policy, and she wants the two sides, so the university and the Justice Department, to hash out a permanent pause on this policy. She said it doesn't need to be draconian, but I want to make sure it's worded in such a way that nothing changes. So that pause will remain in effect while these larger constitutional questions are litigated and until a final court decides if this is a violation of the Constitution. And as you know, this is just one of the many ongoing battles between the school and the Trump administration on everything from funding to DEI.
That's right. And as we mentioned, as we speak, there is a graduation wrapping up in Boston. And as the graduation was happening, the students at Harvard gave the school's president, Alan Garber, a minute-long standing ovation. Danny Freeman, you are right there. What are you hearing about the events on campus today?
Dana, here on campus, there's really a mix of emotions. Obviously, we've seen a lot of the pomp and circumstance that you would expect with any graduation, right? There are families and parents here that are all dressed up. They're thrilled for their graduating seniors. There are a lot of people in caps and gowns all over the place here, again, celebrating their own achievement from graduating from Harvard. But make no mistake, this ongoing battle with the federal government really has been looming large over this entire community. You noted it. We saw that standing ovation for the president of Harvard, Alan Garber, earlier. He's really become the face of the resistance against the Trump administration, and that was noteworthy. But he really stayed away from politics in his remarks to the class, although I will note he did say at one point, members of the class of 2025 from down the street, across the country, and around the world. And he noted, around the world, just as it should be. And that line right there got tremendous applause as well from the folks on Harvard's campus at that moment. But other than that, stayed away from the direct subject of what is going on right now. But a lot of speakers since then have alluded to this idea that Harvard is in a battle and is worthy of defending. Take a listen to what one of the student commencement speakers said on this topic just a little while ago now.
With Harvard at the center of a national battle over higher education in America. Now look, our university is certainly imperfect, but I am proud to stand today alongside our graduating class, our faculty, and our president with the shared conviction that this ongoing project of Veritas is one worth defending.
Now, Dana, all that being said, and Paula's update aside, while there might be some slight relief from that judge's order today and keeping that ban basically not from happening at the moment, there is still concern for the community of international students here. Make no mistake, I've been speaking to folks throughout the week, not just for them, but also for this larger battle of federal funding that is currently being cut or frozen for many researchers here. So this story not quite over, though a cheerful day here on commencement day on campus. Dana.
Back on campus, students weren't just marching for diplomas, they were rallying for identity. One senior nailed it, saying, "Without international students, Harvard is not Harvard." And he's right. You can't market yourself as the globe's academic superpower while chasing away half the globe's students.
Welcome guests from down the street, across the country, and around the world. And welcome members of the class of 2025. Members of the class of 2025 from down the street, across the country, and around the world. Around the world, just as it should be. I see you this morning not as groups of graduates separated by school, but as one Harvard, a community bound by the shared sense the shared cause of seeking knowledge, of acquiring wisdom, and of serving society. A community composed of remarkable individuals who take their chances rather than rest on their laurels. We gather today to acknowledge your achievements and to celebrate your excellence. Here, among beloved colleagues and mentors, and distinguished and dedicated faculty and staff, you have learned to consider curiosity a state in which to live, open always to the ever-present possibility of personal growth.
Meanwhile, Harvard's interim president, Alan Garber, is being treated like the final boss in a Marvel movie. Applause, adoration, maybe even a slow chant of Alan, Alan echoing through the yard. Because when you're the last line of defense between a university and a White House tantrum, even tenure starts to look heroic. Let's be clear, this isn't just a legal squabble over visas. It's a front in the broader war on academic freedom, immigration, and, let's face it, intelligence itself. Harvard is being made an example of for refusing to roll over, and in Trump's America, resistance is punished, reason is mocked, and the law is just another lever to pull when Truth Social isn't getting enough likes. For the class of 2025, especially the international students, today isn't just about surviving final exams. It's about standing tall, even when the federal government tries to kneecap your future. So to all the so-called bird brains graduating today, fly high, because clearly you're ruffling the right feathers. Don't forget to subscribe, click that bell, and maybe send this video to your smartest friend before Trump tries to deport them. This is the political punchline, where the punchlines write themselves, and the Constitution is now apparently elective.